That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it.
Up for sound bites. This is awesome.
Good rising, everyone, and welcome once again to Anti-Religious Scripture Study. This is episode number 26. You are here with myself, Karen B, and Just Jack Flat Earth.
Still flat.
Still flat. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah, it's good to be able to go live. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I had a very a rough week physically. I think there's a lot of frequency manipulation going on in our area right now. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, we're just striving forward. I've been blessed with income creation, from home, which is great. And it appears that, it's coming at just the right time because my wife may no longer be working where she's working because they're starting to push a new mask mandate. So it's a complicated world we live in lately.
It really is. But I would like to see more businesses. Hopefully more businesses will step up and start ignoring that nonsense.
Right.
I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it's kind of like you can enforce it if you want, but it's not really, it's not a law.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the business where my wife was working was because they weren't, so restrictive. They were very free and open through all of 2021. So I guess they're getting pressure from somewhere else that they need to start pushing a mask mandate. I mean, that's definitely not what we're going to talk about here, but we do have personal discussion as well. So
yeah,
it's getting crazy out there. And I think even more now than before, we really need these times where we can just separate from the rest of the world and focus on the Creator. And, it can be overwhelming. I mean, even if you don't go out in public and pursue the conversation about these subjects, they get thrown at you, basically, in every aspect of your world.
It's unavoidable. We are being attacked from all sides.
Yeah, agreed. So I'll just go ahead and read the disclaimer just to get it out of the way. Just Jack's disclaimer. To the religious, if you believe it's wrong to study scripture outside of your religion or denomination, if you believe your religious leaders or church fathers are incapable of having inherited anti-scriptural traditions of men, if you've already made up your mind about scripture, including the scripture should not be studied at all, then this stream is not for you. To others, if you are open-minded to others' opinions, if you haven't made up your mind about scripture, if you've been turned off to religion but believe there's truth in scripture that may have been changed or hidden by religion, if you live according to scripture and like to dig in and discover more, then this stream is for you. We are looking at scripture in the original language using concordances or dictionaries for root words, as well as context from a non-religion perspective, as well as life experience discussion. We are not here to argue with others about theology or doctrine by the traditions of men, including Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. We will be discussing the importance of origins and see how religions contradict the scriptures. And there you go.
All right. Thank you for that.
Mother Dragon is having to deal with the same symptoms I was dealing with this week.
A lot of people talking about how lightheaded they're feeling and how if they get up and walk around, they feel like they might pass out.
Inner ear stuff, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. When you get your equilibrium thrown off, you don't just feel dizzy. I mean, it takes it out of you. Like when you're just like doing regular functions, you become weakened by, doing just regular stuff. Getting up and going to the bathroom is like, oh my gosh, it took it all out of me. It's pretty crazy. But keep, they tell you like to stay in bed and stuff, but it is good to keep circulation going. When you're not feeling well, once in a while, force yourself to get up every couple hours, walk around for a couple minutes. Circulation is very important. Carrying that life fluid through you.
Yeah.
All right.
So
we can recap, but like I said last week, it was kind of like a side story that got thrown in there, and then we go right back to where we left off with the Yosef story. So last week we were talking about the going back here. And let's see the headers. Oh, I don't have headers, only you do. What did they say the headers was last time?
Oh, I forgot to share my screen with you. Hold on one sec. Let me
Uh-oh.
share screen. My bad.
She's
All
new.
right.
This is her first time.
Yeah. All right. So it says for last chapter.
Yehuda and Tamar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is where Tamar had married Yehuda's children. His firstborn, and she was not able to conceive. And the way that the instructions of the Creator is that your name should be carried on through your brother if you're not able to produce a son to carry on your name.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't work out so well for her because, for some reason, Yehuda's children were not worth living. And the third child that she was promised to was not old enough. And while she was sent back to her father's house, which that's not how it was supposed to be done, he was supposed to take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
The younger son was old enough to get married, but yet he never established the marriage to bring her back into the family.
Right.
So she dressed like a prostitute, tricked Yehuda to being with her, gave the tie that typically would go around his waist, the ring, which is the signet of the family, and the staff, which is what you can lean on. These three very symbolic pieces of his armament, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
was there to say, it's supposed to be a placeholder for her to get
A goat.
prime goat,
Right.
but she didn't want that. She wanted to be, with child and back into the family. And so when she was found to be pregnant, he called her a prostitute, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it said that, she's like, whoever these objects belong to, that's the father of this child. And Yehuda says, you're more righteous than I. And again, this is the patriarch of, who the Jews claim to be, right? Yehuda is actually Judah, which is actually Jew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they hold these patriarchs, patriarchs are, the beginning men of the faith, by definition.
Mm-hmm.
They hold them to such a high standard when in reality we all have the potential to be great or horrible people in the eyes of the Creator based on our functionality of life. So Yehuda was stopping the life of his descendants, and Yah was not pleased with it. And then when Yehuda got trapped, he finally gave in, and this became one of the child became one of the descendants, or I guess descendants would be on the low end, one of the ancestors of Yeshua, who people now call Jesus. So if this didn't happen, if this woman didn't decide to take it into her own hands to do what she found to be righteous, that line of Yeshua could have been broken. But she was compelled to do this. So.
Wow.
And we also mentioned that this is where the Kabbalists grab a hold of the red cord thing because she had twins.
That's right. And then the one stuck its arm out, and then they tied a red thing on its wrist, right, to say this is the first one. But then that one pulled its arm back inside, and then the other one came out first.
Yep. And I've heard from a friend of mine that, he looks into Kabbalah a lot more than I do, because I used to get into it, but I realized that that's just another rabbit hole of deception. But anyway, they use this thing to justify the first child being sacrificed in abortions, and that because of that sacrifice, they wear that red cord to say, hey, we've sacrificed our child, and now we should have health, wealth, and that type of stuff with that red cord.
Ugh.
So they reversed the story where the first child was preserved, even though it came out second, and they just, yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, they took something out of scripture and completely twisted it around. But someone who was ignorant to the fact could learn the Kabbalah way and say, what, this is what the red cord means, and then never see this story. And, it causes confusion big time, and this happens not just in Kabbalah, but even in, one layer less deep, I guess you could say, which would be the Talmud, where they take scripture and they interpret it their own way, flip-flop it around, and then create up their own religion. So,
yeah.
All right, so now we're jumping in Genesis 39, and we're back to Yosef.
All right. Yosef, okay. And Yosef had been taken down to Mitzrayim, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, a Mitzrayan, brought him from the Ishmaelites,
Yep.
who had taken him down there.
All right, so let's break that down a little bit. It's funny because I've seen many movies with the whole Joseph story, which a lot of us have. Even people who've never been to church have seen Joseph movies before. And I've heard Potiphar a lot. Potiphar's wife and Potiphar. And there's only one time where this appears. His name only shows up once. And it's like, oh, okay. I thought it was like, in there tons of times.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is in the Hebrew, in the modern Hebrew, it's Paro instead of Pharaoh. And that actually corresponds with the Egyptian pronunciation is a pa instead of a fa. Mitzrayim is later called Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are not familiar, we've gone through this word many, many times. And Mitzrayan just means, one of Mitzrayim. And then Yishmaelim is obviously a descendant of Yishmael, right? So when Yosef, back in chapter 37, was put into slavery, it says that the Midianites are the ones who purchased Yosef, but it shows that there's a possibility that the Midianites, yes, they're very similar, Midian and Midan, Midianites bought him, and the Midianites sold him. And they were brothers and descendants of Avram. So Midian and Midian were brothers, and it could be that they were, one was like a broker, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the word, Karen, we were discussing this the other day of what's that called with one person's a buyer and one person's a seller and one person puts them together. What's the person that puts them together? And I couldn't think of the word.
Mm-hmm.
And the word is broker.
Mm-hmm.
So, slave brokering was a common thing. You had people that would go and raid cities and kidnap people. And then you would have people that would do the slave trade, selling the slaves. But there was also brokers, the people who connected them together.
Right.
And I know that may not be important to some people at all, but this is a very interesting thing because I didn't have enough time to complete the translation, but it was in the last couple verses of 37 that I found this. And it seems very interesting because it's translated as one group of people. But if you look at it in the original language, it appears that it's the two tribes, Midian and Midian.
Interesting. All right. And it came to be that Yehovah was with Yosef, and he became a prosperous man and was in the house of his master, the Mitzrayan.
Now, see, how come it says the house of his master and not Potiphar, right? So it's not really that important, but when they do it in the movie, it's like they want you to pay particular attention to this character Potiphar, like he's super important. And a lot of times they'll take freedom in giving you this whole side story, based on Potiphar's struggles and, all this other stuff. So, I just find it interesting.
Is this one of those things that's like, it's in one of the books that supposedly has been taken out of the Bible, like an extra book or something?
Sometimes they do that, yeah. I don't know if there is one about Potiphar specifically, but you're right. There's a lot of like secondary creators that they'll take, they'll write other stories with more information, and perhaps it's like, real information from third-party sources or whatever. But also it could just be that people write these books just to give the characters more weight,
Mm-hmm.
And I've found both to be true. There's been a little bit of both. You can't just take stuff as, oh, well, they've been taken out of the book, so therefore they must be true. I just take it with a grain of salt. I read it and I absorb the information, and I try to compare it with scripture. And if it doesn't line up, then I put it in the back burner, so to speak.
All right. And his master saw that Jehovah was with him, and that Jehovah made all he did to prosper in his hand.
Yep. So just by Joseph being there, the whole household became more prosperous.
So Joseph found favor in his eyes and served him, and he appointed him over his house and gave into his hand all that he had.
And that word favor, we've come across it before. It's the beauty, right? So he became beautiful in his eyes. Like, oh man, him being here is beautiful, that type of thing.
Right. And it came to be, from the time that he appointed him over his house and all that he had, that Jehovah blessed the Mitzrian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of Jehovah was on all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left in Joseph's hand all that he had, and he did not know what he had, except for the bread which he ate. And Joseph was handsome in form and handsome in appearance.
So he lived as a slave, but yet he made the house of his master prosperous.
Huh.
And handsome in appearance is, it's close enough. It's beyond normal appearance. So beautiful, like extremely good looking.
So Joseph was hot.
Yeah, he was a hottie.
All right. And
according to Torah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge that. I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
It's just like the same thing was spoken about Sarah. Like, she was a hottie into her 70s.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there.
Mm-hmm. And after these events, it came to be that his master's wife lifted up her eyes to Joseph and said, "Lie with me."
Hey, baby, how's it going?
But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has given into my hand all that he has. No one is greater in this house than I, and he has not withheld whatever from me but you, because you are his wife. And how shall I do this great evil and sin against Elohim?"
Okay, so it's funny here, because it's, against Elohim, we're talking about, the creator or the collective consciousness that is the creator.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the HSBR, the original translation was Elohim as in angels, right?
How then can I do wickedness this great likewise and sin angels?
Yeah. Yeah, because the angels, again, Elohim just means the strong leaders. So Elohim being sometimes men, sometimes the creator as the collective, or sometimes as entities of delivery, right? So messengers or doers sent by the creator. And this is important because, context is everything, right? But people will take things in its context and say, well, obviously this is angels because ... And
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, it's not very clear. You're basing it off of a preconceived, idea or philosophy.
Right. Okay. And it came to be, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not listen to her, to lie with her, to be with her.
So she was hungry.
Yeah,
She didn't
sounds
quit
like she
with
was
him.
chasing him all over the place.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. Come
So
on. We could do this.
first cougar.
Yeah.
And it came to be on a certain day when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. Boy, she was really going after him.
Yeah, she was grabbing his undercoat, his undergarment, and as he ran, it ripped off of him.
And it came to be when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought into us a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me and cried out with a lie, and I cried out with a loud voice." Oh,
So it just turned into a racist thing.
well, and she's lying.
Oh yeah, straight up lying. Yeah. Yeah, she's basically saying that, he's not of our people. So of course he's like a what's the word that they used to use?
How
Savage,
is she saying that? Is
right?
it like she took off his clothes and saw that he was circumcised or something? Is this how
No.
she like?
No, no,
how
no.
is?
It's just he's trying to get away from her. And
Oh,
she's trying to pull him in, and as he's pulling away from her, she has his clothes, and he just left him. He's like, "I'm out of here," And she's making it about like, this savage, right? This person who lives out in the field, this Hebrew, he's trying to have his way with me.
okay. Does everybody already know he's a Hebrew? I mean, why is that a deal?
Yeah, she's just using an excuse to like,
Oh,
she's
okay.
trying to flip the script, like, okay, it's like a baller, when you point out their cognitive the cognitive dissonance where they're holding two opinions and it's opposed to what they're supposed to believe, that they'll reverse the script and say, well, what you're doing is you're just believing things that people have told you. They're just projecting, right? They're just saying you're the one that it's happening to when it's actually the other way around.
Okay.
So she's doing the same thing. She's like, that this guy has been trying to get with me, and I finally got proof of it because I have his clothes here.
Yeah. Okay. And it came to be when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside. And she kept his garment with her until his master came home. And she spoke to him these same words, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me."
Okay, so let's go back to mock me.
Okay.
This is Yitzhak, right? Yitzhak is, the name of one of the descendants, and it's based off to laugh or to foreplay, right? This is not mock me. He came in to play with me.
Okay.
Right? So there's a different context here. Like, mock me is like, na 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 boo boo. That's how we think of mocking, right? Or repeating everything that somebody else says. That's mocking, right?
Right.
But in the context of tzak, tzchak, is that she's saying that he's trying to foreplay with me.
Okay.
He's trying to grab my tatas, and he's trying to,
Right.
Yeah.
So it came to be as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. And it came to be when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, "Your servant did to me according to these words," that his displeasure burned.
Yeah. Go back to the translation there. Yeah. Do making for me servant burning anger. So displeasure burned, it's close, but yeah, he was burning with anger, like his nose was flaring, right? So he was super pissed.
Right.
I mean, if it happened with my wife, I would have to believe my wife first.
Right, exactly.
Regardless of what was going on, I'd have to believe my wife first.
Right, right. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the sovereign's prisoners were confined, and he was there in a prison.
Okay, so hold on there for a second. So, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
The word here for prison has the same root as prince, which is that Tsar. If you remember, we talked about that, like Tsar of the Russians, right? Tsar and Tsar, prince, because the prince is the one who has the power to turn your head. It's about complete control. And from that root, we get bondage. And from the root of bondage, we get prison and prisoner. And it all comes from that root of Tsar. And that's why, like, even, and some people are going to, spiral because of the way they've been raised. But I don't let my children call another man sir. Because sir and master and they all come from that same root. Master is from Tsar, Tsar. And so I don't teach my children polite manners to say sir and ma'am, because sir and ma'am is like master and mastress, or, sir and Mrs. These are terms of submission. So, they can use it with me, their father, right? Because I do have authority in their life until they're adults.
Right.
So I'll let them call me sir or Abba. But it's when people meet me and they come in and hang out with me, these flat earthers, they'll come to my house and they'll say, "Oh, yes, sir." And I'm like, "Don't call me sir. I'm not your master." Right. And to some people it may not matter, but it's just like anything else that we've talked about. Words actually mean things based on their frequency, their vibrations, their undertone meanings. And, we have to stop, treating other people as if they have authority over us. People say, well, it's a term of respect, but, respect would be on the same level. You wouldn't put somebody on a higher level as a term of respect. You would say, okay, you're the same level as me. I'm going to respect you as a person. You're going to respect me as a person. We each have our own thing. So, if you look throughout here, every time that we see in bondage, binding, prison, prisoner, and even at some point it talks about the prince. So the prince that does the prisoning. So it's pretty interesting. And again, that's something you just, it's that poeticism within the Hebrew. So if you see, like, prison is Sahar and bond is Asor, but it's the same root.
All right. Oops, I need to bring my window back. Okay, here we go. But Yehovah was with Yosef and extended loving commitment to him, and he gave him favor in the eyes of the prison warden.
Yeah, and loving commitment is a kindness or a bowing of head.
And the prison warden gave into the hand of Yosef all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there was his doing.
So this is like a trustee of a prison, right? Like, he's a prisoner, but he's like second in command within the prison.
That's weird.
Yeah. It happens in prisons today.
Yeah.
Like, there are prisoners that they trust that will I hate using terminology because it seems like they're untrustworthy, but they're the rats of the prison. They'll rat you out if you do something wrong. They're the right-hand man of the warden.
Yeah.
But with that, they get benefits. They get freedoms.
The prison warden did not look into any point that was under Joseph's hand, because Jehovah was with him, and whatever he did, Jehovah made it prosper.
Right. So this is also like why I think it's important for you to do diligent work at an employer, right? Not to impress the employer or not to financially gain, but if you are a noble worker, if you're someone that they can depend on, they're always going to come to you, and that's going to prosper you.
Mm-hmm.
In my situation, these employers that I work for, or these clients that I work for, they all know that when I say I can't work, there's nothing they can do to convince me. But they know that when I do work, I do such good work that it doesn't matter, right? I can always make up the time, or I can get them ahead so that when they need something done, I'm right there to get it done. So, it's a good idea, not for prosperity's sake, but just for the sake of being an honorable person, to diligently work. And sometimes that causes issues in workplaces, right? Just like the trustee in the prison, if you do too good a work at a job, like let's say, I know that some people do factory work, right? Like, someone specifically that does factory work. If he does better work than the other guys, they're going to start getting mad at him,
Mm-hmm.
because now the employers are going to require more of me because of how well you're doing. But that also benefits, that worker, because now he can become promoted within the company and, stuff like that. All right. I'm sorry it's such a short chapter, but it does have a lot to it. It's just, if we sit here and we break down every single word, it could take a long time. But I would like, people to, take their time and look through this. And the good news is that you put the translation right up on the screen for them, so they can see as you go through it, and you can pause and take your time. And, there's some interesting Hebrew, it's called Hebrew isms, okay? The poetic things where, this word is exactly the same as this word down here, but they have two different meanings, but they're still tied together, type of thing. There's all sorts of stuff like that. But it's, now we're moving forward. Joseph was imprisoned, and now, then he got sold into slavery, and now he's getting thrown into prison. It seems like, everywhere he goes, everybody else benefits, but he gets the blunt end of the stick, right?
So Potiphar just means Egyptian, belonged to son.
The reason I put Egyptian there is because it's an Egyptian word.
Oh, okay.
And the translation of the Egyptian word is belong to son. And like Pharaoh means the great house.
Well,
right?
Even under the under definition here, it says an Egyptian.
Yep. Of Egyptian derivation, Potiphar, an Egyptian. No, it's just saying he's a dude who's an Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Brown Drivers, it actually has the definition there, belonging to the son.
An officer of Pharaoh, chief of executioners, chief of the executioners, and the master.
I don't know where they get that from. And
the master to whom Joseph was sold as a slave.
That's true. But he was so all we know is that according to this, the term that's used is also used as a castrate. So he's either one who is castrated or he's a castrator.
Well, and then
so either he's a eunuch or he's one who makes eunuchs. And being as he has a wife,
I don't think he's a eunuch then.
I don't think he's a eunuch.
Right. Okay, so, and then executioner, cook, bodyguard, guardsman.
Yeah, I mean, that one is just straight butcher.
Yeah. So that just means butcher.
Yeah, you literally can use the one word butcher. Now, is it a butcher of animals or is it a butcher of men? That's where you have to look at the context to see what it's speaking of.
Yeah.
Right? So, Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, even we're in the first verse, and even if you just go through and like look at, wait a second, it says castrate. Like, what?
Okay, so this explains why Yosef didn't want to lie with his wife.
Yeah, it could have some serious consequences. Obviously there's the moral reason as well, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there is a moral reason too,
why
but I
would you
mean,
even attempt something like that or think about something like that?
right.
And it's the same thing, like, people get mad at like the commands because they think that the commands are too grievous, but a lot of it is common sense. When you go through the commands and you're like, okay, look, cheating on your spouse is a death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
How many people would cheat on their spouse if it was a death penalty? I'm just saying.
Yeah. I don't
Now
think.
there's a way out. There is something called divorce, and people twist that around, especially in the church, like, oh, well, it says that you can give her a note of divorce, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is that according to Torah, if you choose divorce, that means you choose not to be married. Not that you go marry somebody else. It means like, okay, I'm done being married, and that's it. You're single for the rest of your life. Now,
Uh-huh.
if you're someone, like, let's say you're the male, and the female decides she never wants to be married again, well then yeah, you can go get a wife. And if you're the female and the man says, I decide I'm not going to be married again, then that female can pursue another husband. But that man who chose to be single has to be single.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes the dynamics completely. And again, how much cheating would be going on if this was the deal? If it was a death penalty, or in this situation, if you're in Potiphar's house, if it's a castration threat,
Right.
would you even attempt such a thing? Would you even think about it? Because if you entertain it too much, then it becomes problematic.
Yeah.
But like, so it says Joseph was brought down, but it says Joseph was sheeted or spreaded to Mitzrayim. So, I mean, even like, every one of these words is like the in-depth meaning in Hebrew is far more deep than English. Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Interesting.
All right. Let me see. Da, 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 da.
Any questions in chat?
Doc Michael says the Bible is a risque romance novel. Yeah, there's some parts.
The Bible does have some racy subject matter in there.
Yeah, and some people are like, thinking that children should not hear such things, right? Because they're too adult or whatever. But I've done things where, I've pointed out that the Torah was read to the entire community once every 7 years. So if you were a newborn, you're going to hear the Torah read by the time you're 7 years old, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't, hold on one second. I don't sugarcoat things for my children, but I describe it in the ways of, mechanically, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's not, I'm not removing their innocence, but they're also getting the facts of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people are completely opposed to that, and they say that, one thing leads to another, but it's like, if you teach them what procreation is actually for, and then you teach them according to the Creator, it's so important that you save yourself for your specific husband,
Mm-hmm.
that if you don't, you should die. That's how important it is to the Creator. So that gives them some stability of what it means to be with someone. And I've told them, like, I'm not concerned about them going through the what can I say, the law of the land as far as how they get married. I'm not concerned with that. All I'm saying is, like, if you're making a commitment, that should be a commitment,
Mm-hmm.
And so, my 6-year-old daughter has heard the story before. She knows exactly what's going on here. And it's when she watches it on the cartoon version of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more risque in the cartoon version of it. It's like more nuanced, right? You can actually see the lust in the girl's eyes and the sexual actions and stuff. Where I have to break that down for her, when I'm just reading this out, I can explain stuff to her very clean, easy. And then she watches a cartoon version of this same thing, and I have to pause the movie, and I'll be like, okay, so this is how you don't act with another man. This is very inappropriate behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not your spouse, you don't do that, right? You need to have personal space and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because my daughter, her, she's quite an affectionate little girl. And I have to tell her, when like friends visit, like, okay, you need to give them personal space. It's not appropriate for you to, to hug on or to kiss on or to crawl in the lap of, male friends
Mm-hmm.
or even female friends, just to know that, there's appropriate behavior and, personal space and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, this part of the scriptures is very clear of what's going on here. And, it's just like if you had read the Hebrew version of what was happening with Abraham and his wife and his, the sexual problems with his sons, and then how, Yitzhak and his wife were having public displays of affection. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all these things are missed in the English
Mm-hmm.
completely,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, learning the base information, the base Hebrew translations, you don't even have to like try to break down the word and try to retranslate it. Just in the base translation, you can see how they've, uh, dumbed down. Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
The phone was doing weird stuff. You can see how they've dumbed down the information,
Mm-hmm.
What
Yes.
movie is he talking about? I think it's called Prince of Dreams or something like that. Joseph and the Prince of Dreams. It's an animated movie about Joseph. There's a few of them. Most of the time it's talking about his coat, right? The coat of many colors, which we found out that it doesn't even say colors. It just says that it's a
Long
long
robe.
fancy robe. Yeah. So
So where do they get the many colors from? Like, what? Where does all that come from?
yeah, I don't actually know. I mean, it could be some like Kabbalistic, spiritualism type of thing involved in that. Um, and most coats would have been made of a single fabric, and so it didn't have a lot of design or color. And the longer coats typically did, like they typically were very colorful and um, lots of shapes and patterns and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be fancy. So I mean, it's not it's not a lie of a description, but it's like, why did they replace it? And even, I mean, you can see even in the dictionary of Strong's or Brown Driver Briggs or any translation will tell you it doesn't say color. It says long. It says wrists and ankles type long. So
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah. Yeah, like this one, the butcher,
Mm-hmm.
as a guard. Uh, let's go back to verse 1. Scroll it back up. I can't. I'm on 15.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so it says an officer of Pharaoh, captain of a guard. So, and the Hebrew says Potiphar's castrate, Pharaoh, prince, the butcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are two totally different sentences. Not
Right.
just the building of the sentence, but the description of the words. He was the castrator and prince of the butchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that's a very much more descriptive, type of dude.
Yeah. Huh. Scary. He sounds scary.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, but if you saw any of the movies, I've seen lots and lots of movies with Joseph in it. And Potiphar is always this nice, caring master dude, right? He's a slave owner, but he loves his slaves.
Right. He's a slave owner. He's called the butcher.
Right. Right. The castrator of the butchers. The castrator, the prince of butchers,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it gets pretty interesting.
All right. All right. I guess that is the end of this episode of Anti-Religious Scripture Study. So thanks everyone for joining us. And it's really, really cold here right now. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's been weird
doing.
for us in our area. It was like super hot, then super rainy, and now super cold. It's weird.
Yeah. Yep.
Climate change. The climate's changing.
Yeah.
Naturally, I don't know.
Gee. Yeah, I know it's
All
not
right,
us
y'all.
doing it. I know that much.
The Earth is definitely still flat.
Definitely still flat and motionless. So thanks everybody for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
All right. Cheers.